So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being virtually present at TEDxGLIMChennai. Presenting to you this morning, the incorrigible nonconformist. Heavy words, but define me completely. Incorrigible and a nonconformist. Conformity, I believed, is for the meek. Sometimes you have to take the plunge to see if you will sink or swim. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kashyap, and I'm a cross-country motorcycle rallyist. I was the first Indian woman to finish all motorcycle rally raids in India. Cross-country rallying, as the sport is called, is still uncommon in our country. And there are only a few names like Gaurav Gill and C.S. Santosh who've got us the recognition internationally. It's a sport that requires a high level of endurance and mental strength, as you're not racing for just a few laps on a track, but for days on broken roads and rocks and boulders and deep sand. I was the first Indian woman to finish Raid the Himalaya in 2015 and Desert Storm in 2017, in decades of their existence in India. An Austrian lady rider, I remember, had finished the raid before me on a motorcycle, but no Indian woman went past day one of the 6-day rally. I rode a modified Royal Enfield, and despite a cracked collarbone on the last day of the raid, I rode 250 kilometers in that crazy terrain and reached the finish line. So how did it start for me? Let me take you back to my childhood and family a bit. I'm a chip of the old block, and a lot comes from my father, who showed a good glimpse of his nonconformity and stubbornness, if I may say so, when I was born. The doctors asked him to leave his premature daughter in the incubator, as they thought I would die. And he was convinced I wouldn't. As is evident, after tons of desi ghee ki malish that he did, and becoming a stay-at-home dad in the 80s, something unheard of, I well and truly survived. As a child, I was extremely disciplined and obedient in a lot of ways, never rebellious as I may come across to be. But I never bowed down to the stereotypes though. Girls playing with Barbies and boys playing with cars and motorbikes was never my thing. I did whatever I liked and fancied, and thankfully was encouraged. So I'm the younger of 2 children and come from a small town, Panchkula in Haryana. Strangely, my family was extremely excited at the birth of a girl child. My father had distributed laddus in the whole of the hospital, and the staff mistook me for a boy. Growing up, my parents gave me the freedom to choose my clothes, my toys, my hobbies, my sports. That made me the person I am today. Biologically, I'm born with more testosterone than usual, and yes, I've got it tested. So no wonder, instead of learning painting and sketching or needlework, I went and joined the local martial arts club when I was 9 years old. I eventually became Haryana State gold medalist in judo and represented the state in the national team. I also won a gold medal at British University's college sports in England when I was there for my master's. And after a gap of a decade, I resumed my martial arts training in Dubai, where I last was. So like any other girl growing up in a small town, I've had a fair share of struggles and fighting societal norms. Riding my first motorcycle at 16, I turned heads around and invited unwanted attention several times. I'm only 5 feet tall. I did grow up with an inferiority complex, of course. I mean, after all, you must have heard the songs in Punjab say, Ucha lamba kad or to soni vi tu had, which basically translates as the lass is tall and pretty. India is, after all, one of the biggest markets of fairness creams. We unabashedly show our audience that you will land your dream job if you're fair-skinned. For the longest time, we had subdued ads for Whisper, as women are not expected to talk about their periods openly. And here I was, a mind of my own, opinionated, badass, and dogged determination of staying the way I am till I'm 90, at least. Well, I still remember, back in my college in Chandigarh, most of my classmates wanted to get a master's degree so they can land a good marriage proposal. That used to be the only motivation to study. I was never taught by my parents to aspire to be a housewife, but to be an equal contributing partner. I was taught to achieve financial freedom and to have an opinion. I may not be successful in the eyes of many, as I'm not married and don't have kids. And, my neighbor aunties still care about when will I get married? And of course, when will Salman Khan get married? So, after all, getting people married in our countries, it's a favorite pastime. I, on the other hand, always believed in collecting experiences. At 23, I moved to England for my master's, for which I got an international student scholarship, thanks to my sporting achievements growing up. I also took an education loan, which I paid off over the years, not my parents. I never shied away from working hard, even as a student in the UK. I worked a list of odd jobs that I will proudly tell all my grandchildren about, from being dressed as Papa Smurf in malls to being a bartender, from washing dishes in restaurants to chopping meat at a halal shop, from distributing leaflets on the streets to caring for the elderly in old age homes and for children with learning disabilities, and to eventually working with Google through an agency in London. So I've done it all. A bucket full of transferable skills, of course. I bought all my motorcycles with my own money. My first Royal Enfield, my first made in Austria, KTM dirt bike. And now I booked myself a Himalayan, which will be with me shortly. I worked extremely hard over the years to claim today that I'm a self-made woman and never had a rich husband or a father to provide for me. An extremely important lesson, I feel, for all young women listening to me. Let nobody ever tell you that you aren't capable of making a living for you on your own, that you have to marry somebody to do that. Marry for love, not because your relatives or parents or neighbor uncles and aunties want you to. When in 2015, I was told that there hasn't been an Indian woman who has even finished the 6-day raid the Himalaya race in 17 years of its existence, I took it upon me as a challenge, an item in my bucket list. But when I did finish it that year, I went back the following year and improved my timing, and I gave all the guys a run for their money. I was the fastest Royal Enfield that year, till I went off the cliff, by the way. Another important lesson I learned that day. It isn't finished till it's finished. And also, you don't die going off the cliff if you're fully geared up. These races have changed me for life. I'm not scared to do anything now. I can venture into the unknown with all my confidence and have the courage to wear my failures on my sleeves. I don't know if you guys have seen Star Wars, but I'm a big fan of Yoda and Star Wars. And as he said, do or do not, there is no try. I'm a risk taker by nature, and I also believe in trial and error. I never got anything laid out to me on a platter. I'm an MBA by education and have been a regular working professional all my life, and I still am. I'm not a sponsored athlete by a motorcycle factory whose only job is to stay fit and train on a motorcycle and race. I work 9 to 5 like most people, and then find time for my hobbies, passion, and family. It's not easy, but it's worth the effort. We only live once, after all, and life is too short to listen to other people who put you down or discourage you from pursuing your dreams. I still remember when I bought my first motorcycle, by now you must have guessed, a Royal Enfield, the expert advice was that I would never be able to ride it, as it was too heavy and too tall for my petite frame. Of course, my feet don't touch the ground. No motorcycle there is where it does. But I've ridden 9 times to Khardungla Pass, the highest motorable road in the world, rode it alone from Bangalore to Ladakh, and eventually finished my first cross-country rallies on it, Sajoba Sub-Himalayan Rally and Raid the Himalaya. I also was the first woman hired by the Royal Enfield factory in Tiruvattiur in Chennai, in their rides and community team. It's a team of misfits that devise new ideas and strategic initiatives for the brand. So anything that Royal Enfield does new came from our team. It was a great learning experience for me. I stayed in Chennai for 3 years and I discovered a new facet of my life. I later started the first motocross park of Chandigarh, the Dirt Park, in which I failed miserably as I was way ahead of my times. I may revisit it in future, who knows, never say never. all these achievements that I have spoken of already feel stale to me, and I'm way over them. So I have added new to my list, getting myself a first Dan black belt in judo and attempting the world's toughest rally, the Dakar Rally. I'm aiming to do both before I turn 60 and possibly will be the oldest woman to do so, motivating all others to stay fit and agile. It's time you shed those layers and see who you are hiding underneath all these years. I have, and I'm still at it. The journey to find yourself and rediscover your potential never ends. Be unapologetically you. Stay true to yourself. And as I learned in my boxing class, keep punching. Thank you very much.